What's up, guys? Welcome back to the infamous project. We are doing a motor makeover on today's episode, and the motor is sitting right here, and it belongs to Chris's 1991 light dark titanium hatchback that we sent off to paint, well, a number of months ago. So it's bordering body shop jail, in my opinion. It was supposed to be a 6-week turnaround. We're definitely at like 12, 13, maybe 14 weeks. That's been fine because Chuck's GT has taken up quite a bit of time in the past month, so it allowed me to focus and get that wrapped up. But I want to make sure that this guy is all cleaned up and prettied up before, well, around the time that the car gets back, so that way I don't need to waste too much time in terms of getting that car back together and at least moving underneath its own power, right? So things like doing the trim, getting his interior and his new upholstered seats back in. You can see underneath the plastic there. And those TMI covers actually came out beautifully. I'll show you guys here real quick because why not? Now, sometimes I've seen these look really bad, but these ones actually look really good. And the key to success here is I think that the upholstery shop that's doing the work, they know how to use steam or heat. They pull, they stretch, they change foam that's required. And you can see there's a couple little waves and stuff here, but oh, that's honestly nothing. I feel like once there's some ass time in there, these are actually gonna just look awesome in his car. So the fronts and the rears were done. You can see the old Sonic Blue Celine clone here. Rear seats are sitting over there. And here is the motor, guys. Let's do a little before. All right, so first things first, we need to get this thing cleaned up and degreased. And gonna try and do as much of it with the motor together. Guys, try and plug up your holes in your passages. You know, I'm gonna stuff some rag or paper towel in the exhaust ports. You know, get the thermostat port there closed up and any other orifices. You could pressure wash, but honestly, a greasy motor, like unless you have like a dirty, like a dedicated bay, can make a lot of mess, especially like even like the back spray back on you. So I like to try and like localize and contain things. So you can see I've got an old cardboard box down there that'll soak up and absorb and catch a lot of the gunk. And then once that side's kind of messed up, I'll cut that out and flip it over, or do whatever I need to do to maximize that as a grease catcher, if you will. So going to be using some superclean, you know, engine degreaser. Use some brake clean, which is, well, brake cleaner slash degreases almost anything. Scrubbing, probably use, what do we got here? Just kind of go over some of the material since I got them right here on my cart. So, boom, dissolves grease fast. You can get it in like a foamy spray on as well. Right, and then if you use a nice thick Scotch-Brite, that'll kind of get down into the grooves and to the nitty-gritty. And we're going to be doing, you know, the block, the heads, the everything. All right, and of course, a couple cans of brake clean. You might want to get some gloves, which I feel like I might be out of, but we'll get the job done. All right, so there we go. That is like a bottle of superclean, 3 cans of brake clean. Let's neutralize a little bit of this brake clean that's on here. So brake clean, guys, is nasty stuff. You can see I was keeping my distance. You should probably wear a mask so you don't start hallucinating, like when Homer licked the toad on The Simpsons back in the day. So super clean, that's not as harmful. In fact, it doesn't biodegradable, doesn't say anything. You know, wear gloves and or eye protection. So super clean does great on the surface level, but sometimes you need just a little bit more kick. Well, we got a Terminator in the shop. Not your average Terminator though, because this guy has been converted to a single turbo running on E85 and has some sort of vibration-y ticking noise that we need to diagnose. So that is not happening now. We are back on the motor over here, and it's pretty much dried up. Spilled some coolant down on the floor here, which is always a pain. Always got that super clean floor dry if I need it though. You can see this actually looks really, really good. And all I did from where the GoPro's battery died was literally wipe it down with a microfiber. So I've done that, and I have pulled the wiring, the injector harness off, which is on top of the fan there, and I'm going to go ahead now, undo all the bolts that hold the lower intake manifold on, and I'm going to pop that out. And this guy, I'll probably pressure wash it, because it is always a challenge to get down and around in there. Of course, I'll spray it down with some degreaser first, and then, you know, we'll look in the valley here, make sure everything's looking good, which everything under the valve covers look good, so I'm not too concerned about that. And yeah, really we'll probably almost be able to pop off the timing cover and drop the oil pan, and you know, we're going to be in a position to just, you can see where there's some grease lingering, so we want to make sure that we get that all cleaned up, otherwise the paint's not going to stick. All right, you can see missed some there. Still got to pull these old exhaust manifold gaskets off, which are caked on there. So get the whiz banger on there and clean that surface up. But let's go ahead and pop off this lower intake. All right, well, that was pretty easy, except for that stupid bolt on the coolant line. Sometimes it gets caught, but whatever. Got the intake off, we'll get that sorted out, and looks pretty good under here. So nice and clean, no real debris of any sort. So going to get some cardboard or something and just make sure that we don't get a bunch of shit and debris down in the lifters, and be able to pull these old gaskets off and get things cleaned up and ready for a new gasket. Take that home, pressure wash it, and get that all cleaned up. Should be in nice shape here. So we got the lower intake off, we got all of the surfaces of the heads cleaned up, used a razor blade, used the whiz banger with a purple Scotch Brite, some brake clean, and now got everything. After that, vacuumed everything out, pulled all of the rags and cloths that we had and down all the intake ports, and made sure that no debris went where it should have. And now everything is masked up, so that way when we go to paint the block and the heads, that we don't get a bunch of paint down in the intake valley there. So it'll be pretty straightforward. You know, we'll be getting the valve covers off, get that pressure washed, oil pan off, timing cover off, and from there do the final cleanup. Still got to do the surfaces on the exhaust ports here, and then we're almost going to be in a position to spray and change out the gaskets. So in case you guys are wondering, probably about 2 hours to get to where I'm at right now. And of course, you know, I ordered some Alex Tech cable or wire loom, so we'll be able to kind of rewrap some of this. And this harness is actually in pretty good shape. Could probably clean a lot of that up, but the reality is though, this harness is like 30 years old plus, so it's just a matter of time before this wire loom continue to crack, become more brittle and break. So just good opportunity to get all of that cleaned up and swapped out, and that's pretty much it. I'm projecting like a solid day's worth of work, so you're probably 8-10 hours in terms of once your motor is out, cleaning, prepping, painting, gasketing, getting everything back to where it should be before it goes back into the car. So there's no fancy tools here. This is all stuff you can do at home in your own garage. And guys, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but here at my commercial shop, this is my toolbox. And this is all I have. Like sometimes I bring some parts from my home shop, or some tools rather, that I might need, right? Like sometimes these Milwaukee tools, they travel back and forth depending on what I'm doing. But the reality is, this is all you need to build a Foxbody. It really is. Now, if you guys have, I don't know, some specialty weird parts, or maybe everything's rusted and you need more Sawzall and torches and stuff like that to get you through, well, that's a different story. But that's what I'm working with, guys, just in case no one's ever really realized that. So anyways, I'm going to have a beer, wrap it up for the day, and we'll get back. We'll get this going and finish this transformation. Another day, and well, you guys weren't looking, or I wasn't filming. I went through and cleaned up just kind of the last little bit of grime and everything else. And you can see here, masked everything off, keep the valley all protected and all that. So now is actually going to come the time. There's only the 2 bolts left holding the oil pan on. So I'm going to drop the oil pan, get the old gasket off. We will pull the timing cover, pull the oil sending unit stem off here, and pretty much mask off most of the rest. Wipe it down with some wash and wipe, and we'll start painting. So that's going to take care of the engine block, the heads separately. I'll finish cleaning up the timing cover, scuff down the oil pan. We'll get those painted up. Over here, you guys can actually see, look at how messy stuff can get. Man, this is driving me nuts. Anyways, here's the lower intake manifold. Looks a lot better than it did. So of course I sprayed that down with superclean, let it soak, and then I hit it with the pressure washer. So that's all been clean. Hit the underside up as well, right? So I'll do some final little cleanups on there. We'll get this off, we'll repaint this, we'll pull the fuel rails out and put new O-rings on the injectors. We'll hit the lower intake manifold with probably this cast iron gray finish from Seymour. The aluminum is pretty shiny. This might be a little bit shinier than what we want. I got some Ford gray here, gloss black, light gray. So we got a whole array of colors. Black here, gray there, and then the rest will sort of be gray and cast, if you will. So that's the plan of action. You can see over here, I already started scuffing down the upper intake manifold. We got the EGR plate and throttle body off, cleaned up. All right, the old 50HO plate. So this stuff is kind of on its way to getting ready for paint. So we've got all the elements here. Just need to get the last of the work done. It'll be nice to start getting rid of all of the grime and the dirtiness. You can see here's the old throttle body gasket. Someone actually like tried to glue that back together when they reinstalled it. Who knows why it was off, but yeah, messy job, guys. Really messy job. So let's get at it, get this knocked out, and then we'll be on the up and up and hopefully working in, well, not a clean environment with clean parts. So we are pretty much prepped up here, and I'm getting excited because now I get to get rid of all the dirty stuff. And guys, 100,000 plus mile motor with maybe a couple changed gaskets here and there, but we'll definitely be changing out the oil pump and getting a new one in there. You can see there's a little bit, I'll show you the bottom of the pan here. So we definitely have some sludge, right? Nothing too crazy, but right, we want to make sure we get that all cleaned out of there, and we want to make sure that, you know, the pickup isn't full of this. And we could clean it out, could very well, and maybe, you know, just change the pump. We'll clean out the pickup with a bunch of super clean, brake clean, and just make sure that we get everything out through the screen. So we'll unhook it from the pump there, and we'll do a new pump and get that on. But otherwise, everything is masked off. You can see the valve covers, they're more there just as like a masking tactic to keep the rockers and the inside of the heads from getting paint in there, but everything else has been taped off. And we are pretty much ready here. It's been wiped down, it's been blown down with compressed air. Make sure that, right, things are as clean as possible. And the best way to know if it's as clean as possible is if you do the old white glove test, and in this case the green microfiber test. And right, if we wipe it along, there's a little bit of surface. So we'll probably give it one more wipe down just to make sure. All right, whenever you see really dark spots like that, that usually is an indication that you still have some grease left over. So we will give it one good last wipe down and start spraying. All right, we got a nice sunny day now after all the rain this morning. So that's good, it'll help us with our paint cure time here outdoors. So, well ventilated area, of course, when you're painting. Shake your can up vigorously. Seymour always says a full minute, and I believe it. So I'm gonna spray on some light gray primer first. Let that set up real quick, and it won't take long in this heat. You can see I'm sweating and squinting, and we'll add our color. All right, I was gonna do the block in the new Ford Gray, but then I said, screw it, because you know what? I want the contrast. I want the contrast of the oil pan against the block, and I want the contrast of the valve covers against the heads and the timing cover against the front of the motor. And just, you know, the gray of the block and the gray of the oil pan, it just kind of would have washed all together, kind of looked like primer. The block's back inside. You can see valve covers painted, lower intake manifold painted, and coolant pipe painted. And we just got one bolt holding stuff on. That's just to, again, keep dirt and debris out. I got to make sure I get the rest of the hardware all cleaned up. There's no gasket on the lower yet. But with that said, all right, I've pulled out all the little pieces of paper towel I had in where the injector holes were. And I even opted to paint the bottom sides of the injectors. Good check into the tops of everything, all the mesh. You know, I just blew compressed air to get any little bits of debris or anything that might have been in there. Everything looked really clean. I've checked the O-rings. They are nice and spongy, as you can see. All right, so that's what you want. If there's any that are hard or that are cracked or have issues, change them, guys. They usually come with your Felpro gasket kit. So I'm just going to go now, make sure everything is looking good, which it is. I think somebody went through and actually changed all of these, and if not, actually changed the injectors themselves. But we don't know 100%. It's just good to go through and make sure that everything is functioning and has the longevity left in it, which these O-rings absolutely do. So just going to go ahead, squirt a little bit of WD-40 on the bottoms here, stick them all back into the intake manifold, and then again, that will keep any unwanted debris from going down into those holes. So I'll probably put in a good 4-5 hours, and most of everything is ready. The timing cover, I still need to smash out the crank seal and put a new one in and paint it. Throttle body and EGR, that needs to be taken care of. And then just the hardware. But aside from that, everything else should be ready to bolt on, which is pretty exciting. So we're gonna let this guy sit overnight, let the other parts sit overnight, let all the paint fully cure, well, get on its way to fully curing, and go get our oil pump, so that way we can get that swapped out, get our oil pan back on, and we should be good to go. All right, next day, just like that, guys. So what do I want to show you? I wanted to show you how repurposing products that you use for other things work really good on things that you wouldn't even know that they would work really well on. So if you guys remember when I had Project Menace, those wire wheels that were like gross from sitting out in the Copart dusty sandy lot, and the spokes were all rusted, and the wheels came out like amazing after using the Street Juice wire wheel cleaner. Well, number one, I used it on the fuel rail here, which had a bunch of pitting. There's a little bit more, like a little bit left here, but you can see there, that already kind of wants to wipe off. That's just freshly rinsed. So I'll probably actually give this one more treatment, right? And this fuel rail came out looking pretty damn good. So that's one. But more importantly here, check this out. Now, I let all this hardware soak in some super clean first to get it as clean and degreased as possible. There's still a little bit on there, but in the grand scheme of things, just spraying some of that Street Juice on there and rinsing it off, this hardware is actually in a really good state. I'm going to wipe it down a little bit more, and then we're going to give it the black oxide concentrate treatment. And I've done this a couple times in some videos. Casual Customs has done it. There's tons online. 1 part of this, 4 parts of distilled water, okay? Measuring device so that we can figure that out quite easily. And we will dump all of our cleaned hardware, right? Needs to be clean, in there, and let it sit. You don't need to let it sit very long. 30 seconds to 5 minutes maximum, right? Then remove, rinse with water, and then we'll spray it down with WD-40, and this should all be a nice black color when we're done. So this is mostly valve covers, lower intake bolts, oil pan bolts, and after that I'll be doing like the water pump bolts and everything else. So let's try it out. Here we are. Definitely a lot darker looking. There we go. Just kind of everything rinsed off. Now we spray with WD-40. Not sure how WD-40 seals things in, but that's the magic of WD-40, right? Okay, and then that'll be that. Hey guys, so this is what happens when you use a bunch of stop leak, and it actually looks like the leak was around the lower radiator hose. because there's a bunch of dry formed crystals around the outside, and it really starts working once it meets like the outside air and oxygen. But there's a couple stale spots in the pump, like this opening here, that gets hidden behind this backing plate, and you can see the mess of stuff that it makes. So luckily, I think this pump is actually in pretty good shape. There's no play in the shaft. Everything else looks reasonably clean in here, so I'm just going to clean it out really well, and we're actually going to reuse this. All right, we got all the goods here. Timing cover, water pump, got our gaskets, hardware, everything's been cleaned off. So I'll give it a final wipe down, and we're going to start assembly here, getting all this on. New crank seal, I smashed that into the timing cover earlier. So we're pretty much good to go here. Get the front side of the motor back together. Then after that, we'll get the lower intake on, and realistically, the motor will be sealed back up, get a new FL1A on there, and we should be good to go. We successfully got the oil pump replaced, got the pickup cleaned out, got the pan on, new pan gasket, timing cover cleaned up, new crank seal, timing cover gasket cleaned up, did all the water pump clean out, degunking, new water pump gasket, lower intake gaskets, everything blown out, cleaned out, everything that needs to be done there. Valve covers are bolted down. Lower intake's bolted down, distributor set in place. The upper intake is just loosely bolted on the top here for now, because I still have to get the wiring harness for the injectors re-wrapped and plugged in. We will be capping this off. I need to get a plug for here because that was super brittle and pretty much fell apart in my hand. We'll get a new rubber port for the PCV area here. Of course, I'm gonna have to get, see how dry rotted that is. So get a new one of those in there. We'll get new hoses. They were all cracked and brittle on the back. It's amazing how well stock 5.0s run with all types of vacuum leaks and things wrong with them. So there we go, folks. That's probably a pretty good stopping point for the motor refresh in terms of putting the injector harness back on and plug wires, finding top dead center. We got to bolt the accessories. Obviously, I'll be cleaning up the brackets and everything there as well. And I think we're going to upgrade to 65mm throttle body. So that'll be a nice upgrade and less stuff for me to clean and sand down. Once that's done, we'll jam a new rear main seal in the back once we get the motor off the stand and before it goes back into the car. With that said, the car should be arriving tomorrow, so I'm really happy that I've pretty much got this all together. It'll be pretty much in a position where I can bolt it in the car. I can do the rest of the stuff there, or we'll see how far I get one way or the other. So stick around. Thanks again as always. Till next time, we'll see you back here on the Infamous Project. Looking good. Wow, looks real good. Looks good. Look at all like the metallic in it. Couldn't see that before. No. It's all like old and stuff. Yeah. And dull. Yeah.